always first at the finish line.
Losing power, like these billionaires, like in the 30s and stuff like this, all of America was in a massive labor battle. There was these billionaires who took over America, and they were sending the National Guard and Pinkertons and these privatized military people to go and shoot all these workers who were asking for better pay, and drop chemical bombs on them and strafe them with planes and shoot them with machine guns while they're sleeping. And that's like the Virginia Coal Wars and the Pinkertons and Ludlow Massacre. I think that's the name of it, but I might have gotten the name of that one wrong. But there's just too many to name. But at this time, in the 1930s and 20s, and just from the transition from the 1800s to the 1900s, there's these robber barons who completely changed all of society: healthcare, education, military, food. Like everything was changed by these like 4 ultra rich people, and that's exactly what's happening again today. And it's anti-democratic. These super rich billionaire people try to make all these institutions under the guise of democracy and representation, and that's kind of what this guy is saying at the end here, is that we need all these neoliberal institutions to protect us, but they were subverted by our representatives for money. That's what I was talking about with lobbying and all of that. Like, none of our representatives represent their constituents anymore. So I just had to say that, because his whole thing of here is like, oh, we just need to adhere to the Bill of Rights. Well, what happens when the president doesn't adhere to the Bill of Rights? Or some random billionaire who walks in with the president? So, interesting topic there. Let me switch the screen. So we're going to switch paces slightly. And we're going to talk about basically what I'm going to be describing, and what I was kind of just describing there with the 20s and 30s is, and what happens afterwards is, there's these civil wars within the government over the decades. So we have the Civil War in like the 1850s, or whatever. I can't remember the exact year right now, but I kind of brain fried. I'm trying to get through this recording. I'm probably going to be talking for a long time. But there was a civil war in the past, and that was like actual armies fighting each other. Then in the late 1890s and into the 1900s, there's these billionaires that basically had a coup and changed all of society without like being elected or fighting a war or any of that. They got into power with their money and changed all of society. That's who made Big Pharma, was these billionaires. And that's who made our food system, all of these things, our banking system. All of these institutions that this guy was just talking about protecting were made by the billionaires. But anyways, later on, there was another civil war within the government. And that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on now. So civil war within government over decades. Presidents tried to warn against it. FDR, Truman, Eisenhower, JFK were warning. All of those presidents had warned against this faction of the government who was becoming more and more powerful. Every presidency, every decade, every president warned about them. And it ended up kind of coming to a head with JFK, but Bush Sr. and Bush Jr. and Cheney helped cover up the CIA LSD assassination program and torture program, and then manufactured the war in Iraq as well as others. And this presentation will be a speed run through the 60 years after World War II up till today, well, up to 9/11. After 9/11, we'll probably need its own analysis. People need to start with this before we can move into modern times. We need to start with the 1900s to 2000 at least. That 100-year block, if not 60-year block. So I'm going to start off with, I had asked some AI some questions, and so I'm going to kind of tie all of these institutions I was just talking about and all of these components into what is today the ufology / alternative energy suppression system that we have going on here. So that's what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to kind of tie some of these together. And I apologize that it's kind of jumbled. Like I said, this literally could be like a college class, like a whole semester, and I'm trying to put it all into just one episode. So try to bear with me as I go through everything. And thank you to everybody listening, and hope you're comfortable. Here we go. Could you connect the concept of racist, supremacist, hegemonic ideology intersecting with ufology and alternative energy? And I'll just briefly say the definition of hegemony, of hegemonic. That's like trying to be a supremacist, to not let the other side be able to maneuver or represent themselves, like monopolization, silencing of the other side. That's what hegemony is. And by you maintain hegemony by making sure the whatever we'll call it opposition, quote unquote opposition, is suppressed or exploited or whatever. So that's what hegemony means. The intersection of racist, supremacist, hegemonic ideology with ufology, the study of unidentified flying objects and extraterrestrial phenomenon, and alternative energy, is a complex and speculative topic. That's true. It involves examining how fringe beliefs, pseudoscience, and conspiracy theories can sometimes overlap or be co-opted by extremist ideologies. Now, I wouldn't... this AI is going to take it in its own take. I don't have the data set of this AI. I could maybe make an AI with its own data set as that becomes more easier to do. Like, I was looking at that. So, like, this AI is not going to be 100% on point with its analysis, but I can kind of read through the lines. So when it's talking about pseudoscience and conspiracy theories and fringe beliefs and stuff like that, like, the reason that it's bringing that up is because we're talking about, right, like Nazis. They have extremist mythos beliefs. They believe in pseudoscience. They believe in fringe beliefs. So that's the reason that it's bringing this up. It's not necessarily saying that alternative energy is a pseudoscience or a fringe belief. All right, we've been looking at this for like a year. We know alternative energy is out there. We have freaking photosynthesis, like artificial photosynthesis, where we can make electricity from leaves. We can get electricity from heat. We can get electricity from hydrogen, fusion. It's crazy. I've been talking about it for a full year. So anybody who's been listening knows we have a plethora of alternative energy devices, and it's just nobody knows about them other than the people that listen to this show. And there's so many of them we can't even keep up with them. So yeah, I just had to say that when it's talking about alternative energy and pseudoscience and fringe beliefs, yada yada yada, it's gonna say some bunk. We know the truth, but we gotta like read through the lines here. So I'm still kind of giving a tutorial of how we're gonna examine the information here. So, racist, supremacist, hegemonic ideology. This refers to a system of belief that asserts the superiority of one racial or ethnic group over others, often justifying domination, exclusion, or violence. Such ideologies can manifest in overt forms, such as white supremacy, or more subtle cultural or structural forms, such as systemic racism. And it doesn't mention this, but I will also say that the military's doctrine and documents themselves say that supremacy, not necessarily, it doesn't outright say racist supremacy, but supremacy and hegemony are the ideology of the military. And me and majority of other people that study all of this would also put racist into that. And might not be completely obvious at first, but it is the more that you study it that, like, nobody can say that the IMF is not racist. And the IMF is backed by the military. So in that regard, the military is racist in some degree, at least like by extension, right? There's a lot of different examples of that. I know that's gonna like piss people off or whatever. We've come a long way, like we have Tuskegee soldiers and all of that, or the Tuskegee Airmen, of having black soldiers and black airmen and integrating them, but we still have a long way to go. Whatever, we're like eliminating all the DEI stuff out of the military right now, so I'm not going to get too hung up on that. But these ideologies often rely on narratives of us versus them, fear of the other, and the preservation of power structures. Again, think of this of how we don't let other countries get alternative energy, or even other corporations, because it would destabilize the power structure. And it's a us versus them narrative that these leaders are in. The fear of the other. And if you extrapolate that with like the Chinese to like an ET, it's exactly the same. Our military will have the exact same methodology and ideology towards ET as they do towards Chinese, which is an issue. That's a big issue that we have these, I'll basically say like racist supremacists that are making decisions for our country. It's bullshit. And it's not a representation of the majority of Americans. And it's definitely, I would say, criminal that our tax dollars are going to that sort of stuff. So, ufology and extraterrestrial beliefs. Ufology explores the possibility of extraterrestrial life and UFOs. While it is often associated with curiosity and scientific inquiry, it can also intersect with conspiracy theories and pseudoscience. Some ufology narratives include ideas about ancient aliens, secret government programs, or extraterrestrial intervention in human history. These narratives can sometimes be co-opted by extremist groups to promote their agendas. That's something that we definitely need to be careful of. As far as secret government programs, once again, we know that's real. We don't need, they're admitting it at this point. Alternative energy and technological utopianism. Now, this is interesting. That's up my alley right there. Alternative energy refers to renewable and sustainable energy resources, e.g. solar, wind, geothermal. I would throw in hydrogen there. And probably more. Regular thermal would be one. But that challenge traditional fossil fuel-based systems, which by challenging the fossil fuel-based systems, you challenge the power structures. Some fringe groups or conspiracy theorists believe that advanced energy technologies are being suppressed by governments or corporations, often tying these ideas to broader narratives about secrecy and control. Again, that's not fringe. That's not a conspiracy theory. I don't even think it's a conspiracy. It's just a conspiracy fact. I literally read an article from a CEO of a geothermal corporation out of Austin that said that the Department of Energy was suppressing these technologies. So you don't need to take my word for it. You can take the CEO of these corporations that are saying that the government is not working fast enough on this shit. So once again, you know, when it starts talking about fringe groups and conspiracy theories stuff, like, you have to think about who they're actually talking about, because the AI it's not specific enough to say who it's talking about. It doesn't know enough, at least this specific AI. Intersections and overlaps. Conspiracy theories and control narratives. Racist supremacist ideologies often thrive on conspiracy theories. That is very true. And that's a very important thing that cannot be overlooked, that we need to maybe come back and look at another time. But conspiracy theories that blame marginalized groups or elites for societal problems, like blaming Jews or blaming migrants or foreigners. It's the easiest scapegoat in history, is to blame foreigners. Oh, it's the other guy. It's over there. That's why. It's definitely not me. It's not your representatives who are the problem. It's the people over there. So, in ufology, this can manifest as beliefs that extraterrestrial technology or energy sources are being hidden by government or global elites to maintain control. These narratives can be twisted to fit racist or xenophobic worldviews, such as claiming that certain racial or ethnic groups are collaborating with extraterrestrials to undermine others. See, it's getting complicated there. Yeah, you got to be very careful with all of this stuff, because basically that is what the Nazis believed. Also reflecting back at them again. You know, they did believe that they were... they talked about time travel, and that they were like this superhuman group from the past, that, like, you know, had this special heritage. So they basically kind of are talking about, like, Nazis did believe in this weird, like, super human history narrative type of thing that I've kind of talked about before in the past. Technological supremacy. Some extremist groups may adopt narratives about advanced technology or alternative energy as tools for achieving racial or ideological dominance. For example, they might claim that their group has exclusive access to lost or suppressed technologies that could restore their perceived rightful place in the world, which is basically what I was just describing. Fear of the other. Both ufology and racist ideologies often involve fear of the unknown or the other. In ufology, this might be fear of extraterrestrial beings. In racist ideologies, it is fear of racial or cultural others. These fears can be conflated, such as in narratives that depict extraterrestrials as a threat to racial purity or sovereignty. So here, even the AI is smart enough to link that both ufology and racist ideology of the fear of the unknown or other can be used against people, and the fear of racial or cultural others. Eco-fascism. Some extremist ideologies combine environmentalism with racist or supremacist beliefs, arguing that environmental degradation is caused by overpopulation or the actions of certain racial groups. Alternative energy might be framed as a solution that only certain groups deserve access to, reinforcing exclusionary and supremacist ideology. So, we just named exactly what Musk has been saying, that there's, like, going to be an overpopulation problem, and that we need basically more white people. As far as alternative energy being framed as a solution for only certain groups have access to, I think that is already happening. And that's basically what the Nazis advocated for also. A lot of what we were talking about earlier with, what was it, the 4 H's of health, Hitler, hatred, Heil, I think. That's kind of eco-fascism. They're talking about making this, like, perfectly pure nation where the water flows clean and the food is just like perfect and there's no unclean blood or disabled people or anything like that. That's kind of what they're talking about also. That's why we're deporting everybody, is to make this white ethno-state again. Examples in popular culture and fringe movements: ancient aliens and racial hierarchies. Some ufology theories, such as those promoted by ancient alien TV series, suggest that extraterrestrials influenced ancient aliens or ancient civilizations. These ideas can be twisted to support racist narratives, such as claiming that certain races are descended from superior extraterrestrial beings. Again, I'm pretty sure this is exactly what the Nazis had said. Eco-fascist movement. In recent years, some far-right groups adopted environmental rhetoric to promote exclusionary policies, such as restricting immigration to preserve resources. Alternative energy may be framed as a tool for maintaining the dominance of a particular group. So, that's exactly what's going on. I'll just say that there's an intelligence group called the I-5. It should be really called I-6. Or Six Eyes. Yeah, it's the Five Eyes Alliance, but it should be called the Six Eyes Alliance. And it is the UK, US, Australia, Canada, and Israel. And they share these alternative energies and extraterrestrial technologies amongst themselves, and all 6 of those nations are colonialist white nations. Okay, so if you're like still skeptical on the whole racist, supremacist, technological domination aspect of the global system, just look at the Five Eyes Alliance, and it's all right there in your face that these colonial, genocidal nations that got their wealth off of mass murder in a economy based on torture, that's where they got their wealth, and that's who is maintaining all of this technology and secrecy and intelligence network today to prevent the rest of the world from having a shot at representing themselves. That's hegemony. That to prevent the rest of the world from being able to have any sort of quality of life. Because if they had what they needed, then they wouldn't need to buy things. This is all about manufactured scarcity, artificial scarcity. That our economy is based off of scarcity, and if we had abundance, none of our economy would work. That's what this is all about. This is about manufacturing scarcity for people to live in. Which I would call that criminal, if not genocidal, and maniacal, and sadistic, and psychopathic, and bullshit. And that our tax dollars go to it. Again, like every single second that you're at work, every time you pay taxes, that's what you're paying taxes to. Only a tiny fraction of it goes to actually helping people. Almost everything goes to bombing and corporations. Nothing goes to roads or education. We're cutting it all right now. Like everything that did go to those, we're cutting it. So now it's all just going to go to the corporations. Like Musk, or Tesla, they're buying $400 million of armored Teslas, even though they're junk. Like that car's going to break down. That doesn't make any sense. Why have an electric armored car? That makes no sense. So, and Tesla doesn't pay any taxes. We just give them money hand over fist. It's all corrupt. It's extremely corrupt. And everything that's happening right now, if it was happening in another country, we would call it a coup. Like if what was happening today in America was happening in Africa, we would be talking about like, hey, we need to like look at regime change. We need to get rid of these people. And then we would send in our military in the name of democracy to take out their leader with taxpayer-funded weapons. So, in conclusion, the intersection of racist and supremacist hegemonic ideology with ufology and alternative energy is largely rooted in the manipulation of fringe beliefs and conspiracy theories. That's not true. Like, that's just straight up not true. Well, I mean, it's part, again, it depends on what you're looking at. If you're looking at the Nazi perspective, then yes, that is true. But if you're looking at the alternative energy perspective, that is not true, because we know that that's true. So it just goes to show how complicated some of this stuff is, that like we have to give a yes/no answer depending on what we're talking about. The AI, again, is not educated enough to have this conversation, really. I'm just using it as like a base point for the conversation, because the AI can't fully is not fully knowledgeable of this stuff. It would be cool to train AI to talk about this. I'm sure, I think that's what the government was doing with what was it called, Immaculate Constellation, I think was the name of it. These intersections often rely on fear, exclusion, and the desire for control, blending pseudoscientific ideas with extremist ideologies. While these connections are not mainstream, they highlight how fringe beliefs can be co-opted to serve harmful agendas. Okay, so, talked about that. Let's move on. Can you elaborate how the ideology of economic hegemony, national supremacy, and racist supremacy can fuel the secrecy of ufology and suppressing technology, specifically energy technology? So I kind of wanted the AI to like tap down further into this, to delve deeper into it. The intersection of economic hegemony, national supremacy, and racist supremacy with the secrecy surrounding ufology and suppression of energy technology is a speculative but intriguing topic. It involves examining how power structures, ideology, and control mechanisms might influence the dissemination of concealment of knowledge and technology. Here's a detailed exploration of how these ideologies could fuel such secrecy.